Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the exploration ship UES Horizon, watching the stars drift past the main viewing screen. They had been traveling through the Kepler 442 system for 3 weeks now, mapping new worlds and checking for signs of life. It was quiet work, the kind that made some crew members restless, but Jake found it peaceful. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," called Science Officer Lisa Carter from her station. Her voice carried that tone Jake had learned to recognize over their 2 years working together. It meant she had found something that didn't fit into any of their databases. Jake walked over to her console and looked at the readings. The screen showed a mess of numbers and wave patterns that meant nothing to him, but Lisa's excited expression told him it was important. "What am I looking at?" Jake asked. "Energy readings from that asteroid field ahead," Lisa said, pointing to a cluster of rocks floating in space. "But these aren't normal asteroid readings, Captain. This is organic. Something alive is out there." Jake frowned. Life in the middle of an asteroid field was unusual. Most living things needed planets, with atmosphere and water. "Are you sure?" "Positive. And Captain, there's something else. The chemical readings show toxins, really dangerous ones. Whatever is out there is poisonous enough to kill most known species in the galaxy." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew the rules about toxic alien life forms. The Galactic Council had strict laws about them. If something was dangerous enough, you were supposed to destroy it or stay far away. No exceptions. "Should I plot a course around the field?" asked Navigator Pete Johnson. Jake thought for a moment. The smart thing would be to avoid the area completely, but something about the readings bothered him. "Lisa, is the life form moving?" Lisa checked her instruments again. "No, Captain, it's stationary and the energy signature is getting weaker." "Weaker how?" "Like it's dying." Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had joined the space service to explore and discover, not to watch things die from a safe distance. "Get Dr. Rodriguez up here and prep a shuttle." "Captain," said Communications Officer Kelly Brooks, "regulations say we should report this to the Galactic Council first. They have protocols for toxic species." "I know the protocols," Jake said, "but that thing is dying while we stand here talking about paperwork." 10 minutes later, Dr. Sam Rodriguez arrived on the bridge. He was the ship's xenobiologist, an expert on alien life forms. Jake had never met anyone who got more excited about discovering new species. "Show me what you found," Sam said, practically bouncing on his feet. Lisa transferred her readings to the main screen. Sam studied them carefully, his excitement fading as he read the data. "This is bad, Captain," Sam said finally. "These toxin levels are off the charts. Whatever this creature is, it produces venom that could kill almost anything in the known galaxy. The Zephyrians, the Altarians, the crystalline entities, all of them would die within minutes of exposure." "What about humans?" Jake asked. Sam paused. "Hard to say. We might last longer than other species, but probably not by much." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. The safe choice was obvious. Report it to the council and let them handle it. But Jake couldn't stop thinking about that weakening energy signature. "How long does it have?" he asked. "Based on the rate of decline, maybe a few hours," Lisa said. "Captain," came a new voice from behind them. Everyone turned to see Commander Zeth 9, their Zephyrian liaison officer. His blue skin looked paler than usual, and his large eyes were wide with alarm. "Surely you are not considering approaching this creature." "I'm considering helping it," Jake said. "That would be madness. My people's records show creatures like this have destroyed entire colonies. They are weapons of death, nothing more." "Your people's records also said humans were too primitive for space travel 50 years ago," Jake replied. "Sometimes records are wrong." Commander Zeth 9's breathing tubes fluttered in distress. "Captain Morrison, I must officially protest any attempt to interact with this creature. The risks are too great." Jake nodded. "Your protest is noted, Commander. Sam, prep a shuttle. Full environmental suits and every safety precursor we have." "Yes, sir," Sam said, already heading for the shuttle bay. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself floating through the asteroid field in a small shuttle with Sam and Chief Medical Officer Dr. Amy Walsh. All three wore heavy environmental suits designed to protect them from hostile atmospheres and toxic substances. "There," Amy said, pointing through the shuttle's front window. "Behind that large asteroid." Jake piloted the shuttle around the massive rock, and what they saw made all three humans gasp. Floating in space was a creature unlike anything in their databases. It was about the size of a large Earth dog, but its body was covered in crystalline spines that caught and reflected the distant starlight. 6 legs ended in sharp claws, and beneath its translucent skin, they could see organs pulsing with a sickly green light. "The venom sacs," Sam whispered. "Look at them. They're huge." The creature's most striking feature was the pattern of lights across its body. They pulsed weakly, fading in and out like a dying heartbeat. "It's beautiful," Amy said softly. Jake was surprised to realize he agreed. Despite its alien appearance and deadly nature, there was something graceful about the creature. It floated motionless among the asteroids, its lights growing dimmer with each pulse. "Scans confirm massive toxin levels," Sam reported. "But Captain, look at this. The pattern of light pulses. They're not random. There's a mathematical sequence. Here." "You think it's trying to communicate?" Jake asked. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just how its nervous system works. Hard to tell." Amy checked her medical scanner. "Life signs are weak but stable for now. Whatever this thing is, it's tough. Most creatures would have died already in this environment." Jake made his decision. "We're taking it back to the ship." "Captain," Sam said carefully, "the containment risks." "I know the risks, Sam. But I'm not leaving a dying creature out here just because it's dangerous. We'll use full biocontainment, maximum security protocols." Amy nodded. "I can have a containment unit ready in 30 minutes. Commander Zeth-9 is not going to like this," Sam warned. "Commander Zeth-9 doesn't have to like it," Jake said. "But he'll follow orders like everyone else." Using the shuttle's tractor beam, they carefully pulled the creature into their cargo hold. It didn't resist, or even seem to notice. The lights on its body continued their slow, fading pulse. Back on the horizon, Jake watched through the observation window as Amy and her medical team transferred the creature to a biocontainment unit. The alien looked even stranger under the bright medical lights. Its crystalline spines reflected rainbow colors across the walls, and the green glow from its venom sacs seemed brighter now. "Containment is secure," Amy reported through the intercom. "All toxin filters are working properly. But Captain, we need to figure out what this thing needs to survive, and we need to figure it out fast." Jake nodded. "Do whatever it takes, Amy." "Sam, I want full biological scans. Kelly, start working on those light patterns. If this thing is trying to communicate, I want to know what it's saying." "And if the Galactic Council finds out?" asked Pete. Jake looked at the creature floating in his containment tank. Despite everything, the danger, the regulations, the protest from Commander Zeth-9, he felt they had made the right choice. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens," he said. "Right now, we have a patient to save." Dr. Amy Walsh had been working for 18 straight hours, and her eyes burned from staring at medical readouts. The alien creature floated in its containment tank, looking no better than when they first brought it aboard. If anything, it looked worse. The lights on its body pulsed even more slowly now, and some had stopped working completely. "Any progress?" Captain Jake Morrison asked as he entered the medical bay. He carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Amy. "Thanks," Amy said, taking a grateful sip. "Some. The creature's biology is unlike anything we've seen before. Its blood is basically liquid poison, and it has 3 different hearts that pump toxins throughout its body. But Jake, here's the strange part. I don't think it's supposed to be this toxic." Jake raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Amy pulled up a holographic display of the creature's internal structure. "Look at these venom sacs. They're massively swollen, like they're working overtime. In a healthy specimen, I think they would be much smaller. So it's sick? More than sick. It's stressed beyond belief. Every system in its body is pumping out maximum toxins as a defense response. It's like a human whose adrenaline glands never shut off." Jake studied the creature through the transparent walls of its tank. The alien had 6 legs tucked under its body, and its crystalline spines lay flat against its back. It looked small, and frightened rather than dangerous. Dr. Rodriguez thinks those light patterns are some kind of language, Jake said. Sam's been working on that theory, Amy replied. Kelly's helping him with the communication analysis. They think the creature is trying to tell us something, but we can't figure out what. The door to the medical bay slid open, and Dr. Sam Rodriguez rushed in, his tablet clutched in one hand and a look of excitement on his face. Amy, Jake, you need to see this, Sam said, slightly out of breath. Kelly and I have been studying the light patterns for hours, and we've found something incredible. He activated his tablet and projected the data onto the wall screen. Lines of light patterns flowed across the display like musical notes. These aren't random signals, Sam continued. They follow mathematical principles, prime numbers, geometric sequences, even what looks like equations for calculating orbital mechanics. This creature is intelligent, maybe more intelligent than we realized. Amy set down her coffee cup. You're saying it's been trying to communicate with us this whole time? Not just communicate, Sam said. Look at this pattern here. He pointed to a section of the display where the lights formed complex spirals. This matches the mathematical description of our ship's approach vector when we found it. The creature was telling us how we moved through space. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. It was watching us, analyzing us, and here, Sam pointed to another section. This pattern started right after we brought it aboard. Kelly thinks it might be saying, "Thank you." The 3 humans stood in silence, looking at the creature floating in its tank. The idea that this being had been trying to thank them for saving its life changed everything. There's more, Sam said quietly. The patterns have been getting more complex over the past few hours. It's learning our ship's systems, our language patterns, maybe even our emotional responses. Amy walked closer to the containment tank. The creature's lights pulsed weakly, but she thought she could see a pattern now, like it was responding to her presence. We need to find a way to help it, she said. If it dies, we'll lose the chance to make first contact with what might be one of the most intelligent species we've ever encountered. What do you need? Jake asked. Amy pulled up her medical scans again. The toxin production is the key. If we can figure out how to calm its stress response, the venom levels should drop. But I've tried every calming agent we have. Nothing works on its biology. What about environmental factors, Sam suggested? Maybe it needs something specific from its home environment. The asteroid field where we found it was pretty barren, Jake said. No atmosphere, no other life signs. Wait, Amy said suddenly. Jake, have you noticed how the creature's lights seem to pulse differently when certain crew members are around? Jake thought about it. Now that you mention it, yes. It seemed calmer when you were working on it earlier. And it responded to Kelly when she was running communication tests, Sam added. But it gets more agitated when Commander Zeth-9 is nearby. Amy's eyes lit up. That's it. It's not responding to environmental factors. It's responding to us, to humans specifically. She began typing rapidly on her tablet, pulling up biorhythm data from the crew members who had spent time near the creature. Look at this, she said, showing them the display. Human pheromones, our heart rate patterns, even our brainwave frequencies. They're having a measurable effect on the creature's stress levels. You're saying human presence calms it down? Jake asked. Exactly. And that makes sense from an evolutionary standpoint. If this species developed in isolation, they might be extremely sensitive to the emotional states of other beings. Our natural human tendency toward empathy might be something they can actually sense and respond to. Sam shook his head in amazement. No wonder the other galactic species could never make contact with them. Most aliens approach unknown creatures with fear or aggression. But humans approach with curiosity and compassion, Jake finished. At least we try to. Amy was already moving toward the containment controls. I want to try something, but it's risky. How risky? Jake asked. I want to lower the biocontainment barrier slightly, not enough to compromise safety, but enough to allow more direct interaction. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Amy, if something goes wrong, Jake, look at it. Amy said, pointing to the creature. It's dying. The stress is killing it faster than any injury would. If we don't try something different, we're going to lose it anyway. Jake looked at the alien floating in its tank. The lights on its body were dimmer now and its breathing seemed labored. Amy was right, they were running out of time. Okay, he said finally. But we do this carefully. Full protective gear, and at the first sign of danger, we restore full containment. Amy nodded and began adjusting the containment field settings. The invisible barrier between them and the creature weakened slightly, allowing more air circulation and reducing the electromagnetic interference. The response was immediate. The creature's lights began pulsing faster, brighter than they had since it arrived on the ship. Its 6 legs moved slightly, and for the first time it seemed to lift its head toward them. My God, Sam whispered. Look at the toxin readings. On Amy's medical scanner, the venom levels were dropping. Not by much, but the change was measurable and steady. It's working, Amy said, hardly believing it herself. Human proximity is actually neutralizing its stress response. The creature's lights began forming new patterns, more complex than anything they had seen before. Kelly's voice came through the intercom from the communications station. Dr. Rodriguez, are you seeing this? The new light patterns are off the charts. It's like the creature just woke up. Sam grinned. Kelly, can you run a linguistic analysis on the new patterns? Already on it, came Kelly's reply. And Sam, I think you're going to want to see this. Some of these patterns match human emotional expressions. It's like it's trying to mirror our feelings. Jake felt a strange sense of wonder as he watched. The creature. Its lights pulsed in what seemed like a rhythm of relief and gratitude. For the first time since they found it, the alien didn't look like a monster. It looked like a lost child who had finally found its way home. Amy, he said quietly, how long do you think it will take for the creature to fully recover? Amy checked her readings again. If the toxin levels keep dropping at this rate, maybe a few days. But Jake, I think we need to consider something else. What? This creature isn't just intelligent. It's empathic. It can sense our emotions and respond to them. If we can establish real communication, if we can show it that we mean no harm, we might be looking at the most important first contact in human history, Sam finished. Jake nodded slowly. They had started this as a rescue mission, but it was becoming something much bigger. Something that could change how the galaxy thought about both humans and the species they had dismissed as monsters. Keep working, he told them, and let's see where this leads us. The message from the Galactic Council arrived at 0600 hours ship time. Captain Jake Morrison was in his quarters, trying to catch a few hours of sleep after spending the night in the medical bay with the creature. The urgent alert tone woke him immediately. He stumbled to his desk and activated the communication panel. The face that appeared on screen made his blood run cold. High Counselor Zerth of the Altarian Empire looked angry, and when Altarians got angry, their gray skin turned almost black with rage. Captain Morrison, Zerth's voice was cold and formal. You will explain immediately why your ship is harboring a Class A extinction threat without proper authorization. Jake rubbed his eyes, trying to wake up fully. High Counselor, we rescued a dying creature. Standard humanitarian protocols. Do not quote protocols to me, human, Zerth interrupted. You have violated the most basic safety laws in the galaxy. That creature you are protecting has killed millions of beings throughout history. With respect, sir, we have evidence that suggests you have evidence of nothing, Zerth snapped. You will jettison that creature immediately, or face the full consequences of galactic law. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. He knew this moment would come, but he had hoped for more time. More time to prove that the creature was not the monster everyone believed it to be. His door chimed, and Commander Zeth-9 entered without waiting for permission. The Zephyrian's blue skin was even paler than usual, and his large eyes showed genuine fear. Captain Morrison, surely you received the transmission from the High Counselor, Zeth-9 said. I did. Then you understand we must comply immediately. My people, the Zephyrians, we have standing orders to destroy any ship that harbors a Toxari. Jake stood up. A what? Tuxari. That is what your creature is called. They destroyed 3 of our colony worlds 200 years ago. Billions died, Captain. Billions. Jake felt sick to his stomach. Commander, what if I told you that creature has been responding to human kindness? That it's intelligent and trying to communicate? Zeth 9's breathing tubes fluttered rapidly. I would say you are being deceived. Tuxari are cunning. They lure victims close before releasing their death toxins. It is what they do. This one is different. They are never different, Captain. They are killers, nothing more. Jake left his quarters and headed straight for the medical bay. He found Dr. Amy Walsh and Dr. Sam Rodriguez working together at the creature's tank. The alien looked better than it had in days. Its lights pulsed with steady, bright patterns, and its crystalline spines seemed to shimmer with health. How is our patient? Jake asked. Amy smiled. Much better. Toxin levels are down 60% from when we found it. Whatever we're doing, it's working. Jake, Sam said excitedly, you need to see what Kelly discovered about the communication patterns. The creature isn't just intelligent, it's trying to learn our language. Jake's heart sank. He had to tell them about the Council's order, but seeing the progress they had made it even harder. There's something you both need to know, he said quietly. The Galactic Council knows about our passenger. They want it gone. Today. Amy's smile faded. Gone how? Jettisoned into space. They think it's something called a Tuxari, a species that destroyed several worlds in the past. That's impossible, Sam said. This creature is peaceful. It's been trying to help us understand it. Tell that to High Counselor Zerth, Jake replied. He gave us a direct order. The 3 humans stood in silence, watching the creature float peacefully in its tank. Its lights pulsed, and what they had learned were patterns of contentment and curiosity. What are you going to do? Amy asked. Before Jake could answer, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Morrison to the bridge. Emergency transmission from Earth Command. Jake hurried to the bridge, hoping that maybe Earth's government would support his decision. When he arrived, the main screen showed Admiral Patricia Hayes, commander of Earth's Deep Space Exploration Division. Captain Morrison, Admiral Hayes said without preamble, I've been in communication with the Galactic Council about your situation. They want that creature destroyed immediately. Admiral, we have evidence that the creature is intelligent and peaceful. Captain, I've reviewed your reports. While your findings are interesting, we cannot risk war with the Galactic Council. Over one alien creature, you have your orders. Jake felt the eyes of his bridge crew on him. Navigator Pete Johnson looked troubled. Communications Officer Kelly Brooks had tears in her eyes. Even some of the crew members who had been skeptical about rescuing the creature now looked upset. Admiral, Jake said carefully, what if I could prove that this creature poses no threat? What if I could show that it's actually trying to help us? Admiral Hayes frowned. Captain, the Council has made their position clear. This species, these Tuxari, they're considered weapons of mass destruction. The only reason they haven't sent a battle fleet to destroy your ship is because you're human, and we have treaties with most Council species. How long do I have? 12 hours, Captain. After that, Earth Command cannot protect you from Council. Justice. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in heavy silence. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same conflict in their faces that he felt in his heart. Captain, Kelly said quietly, I've been monitoring the creature's communication attempts. In the last few hours, it's been trying to tell us something specific. The patterns have changed. Show me, Jake said. Kelly transferred her data to the main screen. The light patterns were indeed different, more urgent and repetitive. I think it knows something is wrong, Kelly continued. The patterns started changing right after the first transmission from the Council, like it can sense our distress. Dr. Rodriguez's voice came through the intercom. Captain, you need to get down here right away. Something's happening with the creature. Jake and Kelly rushed to the medical bay where they found Sam and Amy staring at the containment tank in amazement. The creature was no longer floating peacefully. Instead, it was pressed against the transparent wall closest to them, its lights pulsing in rapid, complex patterns. It started acting like this about 10 minutes ago, Amy explained. Right after your conversation with Admiral Hayes. The toxin levels, Sam said, checking his readings. They're spiking again, but not like before. It's like the creature is deliberately producing specific compounds. Kelly pulled out her scanner and began analyzing the new light patterns. Captain, this is incredible. The creature is trying to show us something. These patterns, they're not just communication anymore. They're like blueprints. Blueprints for what? Jake asked. Kelly worked frantically with her equipment. I'm not sure yet, but they involve the creature's own biology. Like it's trying to explain how its venom works, what it's really for. Amy gasped as she looked at her medical readings. The compounds it's producing now, they're not toxic, they're medicinal. These are healing agents, not poisons. What are you saying? Jake asked. I'm saying we've been wrong about everything, Amy replied. This creature isn't a weapon, it's a healer. The venom it produces when stressed might be deadly, but when it's calm and happy, it creates medicine. Sam nodded excitedly. That would explain the historical attacks. If Toxari are naturally peaceful healers but they produce deadly toxins when frightened or threatened, then any aggressive first contact would result in disaster. Jake felt a spark of hope. And no other species has ever tried a peaceful approach. Because they're all too afraid, Amy said. But humans we approached with kindness instead of fear. Kelly looked up from her scanner. Captain, I think the creature knows about the Council's order. It's trying to prove its value to us. Look at these patterns. They're showing us medical formulas, healing techniques we've never seen before. Jake stared at the creature, which continued pressing against the containment wall, its lights pulsing desperately. It wasn't just trying to save itself. It was trying to save his crew from having to make an impossible choice. We have 12 hours, Jake said finally. If we're going to prove that the Council is wrong about the Toxari, we need to do it fast. Amy nodded. Then let's get to work. But even as they began their race against time, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that 12 hours might not be nearly enough to change thousands of years of galactic prejudice. Captain Jake Morrison made a decision that would either save his career or end it completely. He walked to the containment tank where the creature floated, pressing its body against the transparent wall. Its lights pulsed with what he now recognized as desperation and hope. Amy, he said quietly, I want you to lower the containment field completely. Dr. Amy Walsh looked up from her medical scanner, her eyes wide with shock. Jake, that's incredibly dangerous. If we're wrong about this creature, then we'll die proving that humans were willing to trust when no one else would, Jake replied. But Amy, look at it. Really look at it. Does that look like a monster to you? Amy studied the creature carefully. Its 6 legs were tucked peacefully under its body, and its crystalline spines lay flat against its back. The lights on its skin pulsed in gentle rhythmic patterns that somehow reminded her of a cat purring. It looks scared, she said softly. It should be, said Dr. Sam Rodriguez from across the room. Kelly's translation programs show that it understands what's happening. It knows the Council wants it dead. Communications Officer Kelly Brooks looked up from her workstation. The creature has been trying to tell us something for the past hour. The light patterns are getting more complex, more urgent. I think it wants to show us something important. Jake walked to the containment controls. Then let's give it the chance. Captain, Commander Zeth 9's voice came from the doorway. The Zephyrian had entered the medical bay without them noticing. You cannot be serious about this course of action. The moment you drop those barriers, that thing will kill everyone in this room. Will it? Jake asked. Commander, you've been watching our progress for days now. Have you seen any signs of aggression from this creature? Zeth 9's breathing tubes fluttered nervously. Toxari are cunning. They wait for the perfect moment to strike. Or maybe, Jake said, his hand hovering over the containment controls, they're just misunderstood. Before anyone could stop him, Jake pressed the button. The containment field flickered and died. For the first time since they brought it aboard, Nothing stood between the humans and the creature except open air. The medical bay went completely silent. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the creature to attack or release deadly toxins into the air. Instead, something remarkable happened. The creature slowly unfolded its 6 legs and stood up. It was smaller than they had thought, about the size of a medium dog. Its crystalline spines caught the light and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. Most amazing of all, the lights on its body began pulsing in a pattern that Kelly had identified as the Toxari equivalent of joy. The toxin readings, Amy whispered, checking her scanner. They're almost 0. It's not producing any venom at all. The creature took a careful step forward, then another. It moved slowly, as if it understood that sudden movements might frighten the humans. When it reached the edge of its tank, it stopped and looked up at Jake. Jake found himself staring into eyes that were nothing like what he expected. They were large and dark, filled with intelligence and something that looked very much like gratitude. Slowly, carefully, Jake knelt down and extended his hand. The creature sniffed his fingers with a small nose-like opening, then gently touched Jake's hand with the tip of one claw. The touch was warm and surprisingly gentle. Jake felt a strange tingling sensation, and when he looked at his hand, he saw that a small cut on his finger from earlier that day had completely healed. "Did you see that?" Amy said excitedly. "It just healed him." The creature looked around the room at each of the humans, its lights pulsing with what could only be described as happiness. Then it did something that made everyone gasp. It walked over to Sam, who had been injured during their asteroid field exploration and was still wearing a bandage on his arm. Without any prompting, the creature touched its claw to Sam's bandage. When Sam removed the bandage, the wound underneath had vanished completely. "Incredible," Sam breathed. "It's not just intelligent, it's a natural healer." Even Commander Zeth-9 looked amazed. "In all our records of Toxari encounters, nothing like this has ever been reported." Kelly was working frantically at her communication station. "Captain, the light patterns have changed again. I think it's trying to explain something about its species." The creature moved to the center of the room and began a complex display of lights across its body. The patterns flowed like music, telling a story that Kelly translated as quickly as she could. "It's showing us its homeworld," Kelly said. "A place where Toxari lived in harmony with other species. They were healers, doctors for an entire planetary system." The light patterns shifted, becoming darker and more chaotic. "Something went wrong," Kelly continued. "A disease, a plague that killed most of the life on their world. The Toxari tried to help, but the other species blamed them for the plague." The creature's lights turned red and angry, showing scenes of violence and fear. "They were attacked," Kelly translated. "Hunted. The survivors became terrified and defensive. When they were cornered or threatened, their healing compounds turned into deadly toxins as a defense mechanism." Amy nodded. "That explains everything. The historical attacks weren't aggression. They were desperate self-defense by a traumatized species." The creature's lights returned to gentle blues and greens as it finished its story. It looked at each human in turn, then began a new pattern of lights. "It's thanking us," Kelly said, her voice filled with wonder. "It says humans are the first species to show kindness instead of fear." Jake stood up slowly, his mind racing. "We need to record all of this. Every scan, every translation, every moment of interaction." "Already on it," Amy said, checking her medical equipment. "I've documented the healing abilities, the toxin control, everything. And I have complete linguistic records of the communication," Kelly added. Sam was scanning the creature with every instrument he had. "The biological data alone will revolutionize xenobiology. This creature can consciously control its biochemistry based on emotional state and intent." Jake activated his communication panel. "All crew members to Medical Bay, I want everyone to see this." Over the next hour, the creature interacted with every member of the crew. It healed Navigator Pete Johnson's chronic back pain with a simple touch. It helped engineer Tony Martinez by producing a compound that perfectly sealed a small leak in his environmental suit. Most remarkably, it seemed to understand each person's needs without being told. Even the skeptical crew members were convinced. Chief Engineer Rachel Stone, who had argued against bringing the creature aboard, found herself crying as it gently healed an old scar that had caused her pain for years. "This changes everything," she said to Jake. "This creature, these Toxari, they could help millions of people throughout the galaxy." But Commander Zeth-9 remained worried. "Captain Morrison, even if everything you have discovered is true, the Galactic Council will not easily change their minds. Fear of the Toxari runs too deep." Jake checked the time. They had only 4 hours left before the Council's deadline. Then, "We need to give them proof they cannot ignore," he said. "Kelly, prepare a complete data package, every scan, every recording, every moment of communication." "What are you planning?" Amy asked. "I'm going to make a presentation to the Galactic Council," Jake replied, "and our friend here is going to help me do it." The creature looked up at Jake and pulsed its lights in what Kelly translated as agreement and determination. It seemed to understand that this was their chance to change the future for both their species. "But first," Jake said, kneeling down to look the creature in the eyes, "we need to give you a proper name. Something better than the creature or it." The alien's lights pulsed thoughtfully, then formed a complex pattern. Kelly smiled as she read the translation. "It says its name is Hope. In the Toxari language, it means light in darkness." Jake smiled back. "Hope it is. And Hope, you're about to help us light up the entire galaxy." The Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from 47 different species, and Captain Jake Morrison had never felt so alone. He stood at the center of the massive room, with Hope beside him. The alien creature stayed close, to his legs, its lights pulsing softly with what Jake now recognized as nervousness. High Counselor Zerth glared down at them from his elevated platform. His gray skin had turned almost black with anger, and his voice echoed through the chamber when he spoke. "Captain Morrison, you have defied direct orders from this council. You have endangered countless lives by harboring a Class A extinction threat. Explain yourself before we pass judgment." Jake looked around the chamber at the assembled aliens. He saw fear in their eyes, hatred in their postures. Most had never seen a living Toxari before, and the few who had survived encounters with Hope's species remembered only death and destruction. "High Counselor, members of the Council," Jake began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "What if I told you that everything we thought we knew about the Toxari was wrong?" A ripple of angry voices filled the chamber. The crystalline representative, Prism 7, spoke in its ringing crystal voice. "Captain Morrison, Toxari have killed billions of beings. This is historical fact, not opinion." "Yes," Jake replied. "But why did they kill? What drove them to violence?" "They are monsters," hissed the Serpentine ambassador. "They kill because it is their nature." Hope pressed closer to Jake's leg, its lights flickering with distress. Jake reached down and gently touched the creature's crystalline spines. Immediately, Hope's light steadied, pulsing with calm patterns. "Council members, I ask you to observe," Jake said. "This creature has been aboard my ship for 6 days. In that time, it has not harmed a single person. Instead, it has healed injuries, shown intelligence, and displayed emotions we recognize as compassion and gratitude." "Lies," Commander Zeth-9 spoke from his position among the Zephyrian delegation. "Toxari are cunning. They deceive their victims before striking." Jake activated his portable projection system. "Then let me show you the truth." The chamber filled with holographic images from the past week. The council watched as Hope interacted with the human crew, healing wounds and communicating through complex light patterns. They saw the creature's distress when threatened and its joy when shown kindness. "These images could be fabricated," Zerth said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. "Dr. Walsh, Dr. Rodriguez, please join me," Jake called. Amy and Sam walked into the chamber, both carrying portable scanning equipment. They looked nervous but determined. "Honorable Council," Amy said, "our medical scans show that this creature can consciously control its biochemistry. When calm and happy, it produces healing compounds. Only when terrified or threatened does it create toxins. Sam activated his biological scanner. The creature's intelligence quotient matches or exceeds that of most council species. It has learned our language, understood our customs, and shown empathy beyond what we see in many civilized species. Furthermore, Amy continued, we believe the historical attacks attributed to Toxari were actually desperate acts of self-defense by a traumatized species. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several representatives stood up, shouting in languages Jake didn't understand, but he noticed that some council members remained seated, watching Hope with curiosity rather than fear. Hope itself seemed to understand what was happening. Its lights began pulsing in the complex patterns that Kelly had identified as storytelling. Even without translation equipment, the rhythm and flow of the lights told an emotional story of loss, fear, and hope. It's trying to communicate with you, Jake said loudly over the noise. It's trying to tell you its people's story. The shouting gradually died down as more council members became fascinated by Hope's light display. The creature moved to the center of the chamber, its lights painting rainbow patterns on the walls and ceiling. Communications Officer Kelly Brooks entered the chamber carrying her translation equipment. Permission to translate, Captain? Jake nodded, and Kelly began interpreting Hope's light patterns into audible words that echoed through the chamber. Long ago, my people lived in harmony with others, Kelly translated. We were healers, helpers, friends to all who needed us. Our world was beautiful, filled with many species living together in peace. The lights shifted to darker colors, and Hope's entire body seemed to slump with sadness. Then came the great dying, Kelly continued. A plague that killed plants, animals, entire species we tried to help, tried to heal, but we could not stop the death. The survivors blamed us. They said we brought the plague. Hope's lights flashed red and chaotic, showing scenes of violence and terror. They hunted us, killed us, drove us from our homes. Those who survived learned to fear all other species. When cornered, when threatened, our bodies changed our healing medicine into killing poison. We became the monsters they said we were. The creature's lights returned to soft blues and greens, and it looked directly at the council members. But these humans, they showed kindness first. They risked their lives to save one dying Toxari. They proved that not all species are enemies. They gave us hope that healing can return. The chamber was completely silent. Even the most hostile council members seemed moved by Hope's story. High Counselor Zerth spoke quietly. Even if this tale is true, how can we trust that other Toxari will be equally peaceful? Hope's lights pulsed with excitement, and it began a new pattern of communication. Kelly translated eagerly. It says there are others, Kelly said. A hidden colony of surviving Toxari. They've been watching galactic civilization for centuries, waiting for someone to show them that contact could be safe. How many others? Asked the aquatic representative speaking through its translation device. Kelly listened to Hope's response. Approximately 3,000 individuals. They possess medical knowledge that could revolutionize healthcare throughout the galaxy. Dr. Amy Walsh stepped forward. Council members, in just 6 days, this single Toxari has shown us healing techniques we never imagined. Imagine what we could accomplish working together with their entire species. And, added Dr. Rodriguez, they could help us prevent future plagues like the one that destroyed their world. Their biochemical knowledge is centuries ahead of ours. One of the younger council members, a felinoid named Whisperclaw, stood up. High Counselor, what if we are wrong? What if our fear has prevented us from gaining allies who could help save lives throughout the galaxy? Other voices joined the discussion. The tide of opinion was slowly turning as council members began to see Hope not as a monster, but as a representative of a misunderstood species. High Counselor Zerth looked down at Hope, who gazed back with large, intelligent eyes. Toxari, he said formally, if we were to allow contact with your people, how would we know they would not attack? Hope's lights pulsed thoughtfully, then formed a new pattern. Kelly smiled as she translated. It says humans would be the ambassadors. Toxari trust humans now because humans trusted them first. Any meetings would include human representatives to help both sides feel safe. Jake felt a surge of pride, Once again, humanity was being asked to bridge the gap between species that couldn't understand each other. Zerth looked around the chamber at his fellow council members. I call for a vote, all in favor of establishing peaceful contact with the Toxari species under human mediation. Slowly, hands and appendages rose throughout the chamber. Not all council members voted yes, but more than enough to pass the resolution. The motion passes, Zerth announced. Captain Morrison, your species will serve as official mediators for first contact with the Toxari. And Captain, the council apologizes for doubting human judgment. Jake knelt down beside Hope, whose lights were now pulsing with pure joy. Did you hear that, Hope? Your people are going to be safe. Hope touched Jake's hand gently with one claw, and Jake felt the same warm, tingling sensation as before. But this time it felt like more than healing. It felt like friendship. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. Toxari healers worked alongside medical professionals from dozens of species. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for centuries were being cured. The hidden Toxari colony had emerged from hiding and was sharing knowledge that benefited everyone, and at the center of it all were humans, the species that had looked at a monster and seen a friend in need. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest discoveries came not from conquering fear, but from choosing compassion instead. Jake often visited Hope, who had become something of a celebrity throughout known space. The creature had learned to speak several galactic languages and served as an ambassador for its people, but it still preferred the company of humans, the species that had given it hope when all seemed lost. You know what the strangest part is? Jake asked Hope one day as they walked through the ship's gardens together. Hope's lights pulsed in a questioning pattern. Every other species in the galaxy looked at your people and saw death, but humans looked and saw life. I think that says something important about who we are. Hope's lights flashed, and what Jake had learned was the Toxari equivalent of laughter. Through the translation device, Hope's voice was warm and musical. Captain Jake, Hope said, humans do not see death or life. Humans see possibility.